просто би не повірила, ох, як же тремтіла би ти, що душу і серце нам вирвали твої сестри, твої брати. Вони теж говорять російською, вони нібито схожі, та знов ми дивились, як полум'я блискає, їх братерство та їхня любов. І Москва леді, ваші танки у вогні, вам ніколи не зламати наш запал на цій війні, бо ми не одні. Ваші танки у вогні, хай ті виродки захлинуться і потонуть брехні. Ти просто би не повірила, сказала би маячня, що в нашому мирному й тихому місті розвернеться нова чашеня. Хай зірвуться нитки і всі похідні, пишайся тим, хто я є. Ти навчила казати у відповідь ні і боротися за своє. Замість рідні, ваші танки у вогні, вам ніколи не зламати наш запал на цій війні, бо ми не одні. Ваші танки у вогні, хай ті виродки захлинуться і потонуть брехні. За вас усі тюльпани червоніють навесні, як тільки згадаю крізь роки, на що ви гідні. Кремля яскраві стіни побудовано з брехні, а чесним сильним людям жодні стіни не потрібні. Замість рідні, ваші танки у вогні, вам ніколи не зламати наш запал на цій війні, бо ми не одні. Ваші танки у вогні, хай ті виродки захлинуться і потонуть брехні. І потонуть брехні. І потонуть брехні. І потонуть брехні.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. Добрий день.
Добрий день.
It's been a little while. We haven't been talking after the dance. Thank you so much for this energetical soundtrack, Marianna. Who was that?
It was a band, Kyiv-based band called Діти інженерів, which can be translated as kids of engineers. And the song called Ти б не повірила, which means you would not believe. So basically everything was about you would not believe that in our peaceful city would be the second Chechnya. You wouldn't believe that our life will be turned down with the lies. And the chorus is basically instead of your world, your tanks are on fire. And and you will never break our courage on this war, and you will drown in your lies. Basically, this is what the chorus. So this is for me, it is a very motivative song. When I heard it first time, there was like a basically description of everything that happened for the last 7 months, and basically nobody would believe that this would happen, and we really like our fight, our courage, like with all the atrocity that they've done already, and they will do probably, they will not break up us. They will not break us, our courage to fight for our land and to fight for the freedom and fight for the truth. Because everything, a lot of with what we are fighting is also a lies, fakes, and everything connected with. And basically, I like the phrase from the song that your big red crumbling wall is built on lies and blood, which is true.
I have a question quickly. When was the song written?
I don't know, but it was released in summer. Okay. I'm not sure if it was written before, but it was released in summer, July, I guess.
Yeah, okay.
Marianna,
so after it all began.
I just have a technical request for you. Would you mind not moving too much, like staying somewhere? Because we kind of
sure.
lose you, have you, lose you, have you. I don't know how the live streaming is, but it's easier to have you like fixed somewhere. Yeah,
I'm just have this energetic injection on me after the song, so yeah, sorry.
But what is your main emotion these days?
Basically, yesterday I think I was really anxious. I was really anxious because of not because what Putin announced yesterday. We knew that it will happen. It's not, it means nothing to us. It means nothing completely, because they claim to join Zaporizhia, but they control part of that region. They don't control Zaporizhia city itself at all. And that morning when they were signing, they killed 25, 30 people in Zaporizhia. They literally killed 30 people in the humanitarian column. So, but what I was anxious about is that now, as they perceive those regions to be theirs, part of Russia, they will use even more deathful weapons. And our intelligence also considers the possibility of them using the tactical nuclear weapons is very high. This possibility is very high. And basically, I didn't want to believe this song is very kind of portrayed my mood, because I didn't believe that the war itself will happen. 21st century, bombing the cities, it's crazy. It's overdated already. Outdated, I'm sorry. It's you can't do that. Why would you do this? But it happened. So for me, it's like yesterday was accepting that there is a very high chance it will happen sooner or later. They will use a tactical nuclear weapon, because basically all the things they do, like throughout their history, they want to they act like they want to make people be scared. Yesterday it worked on me, because when people are scared, they're submissive, like they are in Russia. They all are scared. If you saw the protest was not anti-war. The protests were anti-mobilization. Nobody wants to die themselves. They want to watch some Ukraine die and they are being great on the TV. They don't want to die themselves. They don't want, they are afraid to be, if they refuse to go to mobilization, they are afraid to be in prison, because they know how they're afraid of being in prison, because they know how many tortures are in their prisons. And so they're using these tactics of I will finish right now. They're using these tactics of make people scared, like by bombing the Kremenchuk shopping mall. It's basically make Ukraine be so scared of their weapon to just go to our government and say, please, let's just give our land away to Putin. Just because we are so scared of those attacks. The thing is that he is so sure that it works because it works inside of Russia, but it doesn't work in Ukraine. We're getting really, really mad after those atrocities happen. We donate more to our army. Everybody are doing, more than we did before after those atrocities, because we have completely opposite reaction on those atrocities. But for me, yesterday I was really scared that I have to accept and I have to have a plan in case this will happen. The tactical nuclear weapon will happen. We should accept this.
You speak about tactical nuclear weapon, and
yeah,
can you give more details? Is there a difference between a tactical nuclear weapon
and strategical? So basically, strategic nuclear weapon, it's a bigger missile. It flies all the way to stratosphere. So we have and it's created to basically target New York. So it's so powerful and so, and it's very hard to intercept this rocket because it goes to stratosphere. So basically, this is like low chance that they will use the strategic one because it's like the amount of number of kilometers that divides us. It's not as big to use that one. But they will use the tactical one, and tactical one, they're different. So the ones there are ones that are, in the underground tubes that are like going from there. There are some of those who can be used in caliber missile that already, like, they use in calibers to attack Ukraine since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, and they can be based on the ships, it can be based on the planes, on the jets. So it's probably harder to track those, like because those like nuclear rockets, they're stored somewhere separately from the other rockets. So it's probably just harder to track that logistics. So for me, the tactical nuclear weapon, it's something that can destroy the city. It definitely will have this nuclear cloud that only depends on wind. Nobody knows where it can go. But the good part in this is that the nuclear elements that are in this missile, they are dissolving very fast. And like within 3 days, it's relatively safe to go outside and to continue living. So
any courses on how to react if this happens, or how can you know all these things? What is the plan right now in Ukraine with that topic?
So we have a media like campaign. Like a lot of media are telling this. So basically, I'm just telling you partially what I know from my dad, who was military, and partially I'm telling you everything that they told us how to be prepared. So basically, if you know that if you hear the siren, we have a specific now announcement for different kinds of air raid sirens. So there is a regular one that's for the regular rockets, regular missiles that we have had before, and there is a specific one for the chemical attack, and there is a specific one for the nuclear one. And basically, you have a certain time to hide, and better to hide underground. But if you don't have those 5-7 minutes, you better to be at home, far from the windows, somewhere not on the last floors, but in the middle of the building. And then after you had 2 waves of destruction, you have 10 minutes before all those chemicals falling down, the nuclear one. So you still have, if you haven't died from the explosion itself, you have 10 minutes to go somewhere underground and stay there for at least a day, at least 24 hours, but the best option is 3 days. So this is the plan. So basically you always have to have, everywhere you go, you have to have a certain amount of needed things for 3 days, which is problematic because, like, if you're a freelancer, you probably work at home, but if you work in the office, you should definitely have 2 options. And still not everywhere. For example, my parents' house doesn't have a very close shelter, so it's no way that they can make it in 10 minutes. So this is my main concern right now, my parents and my mother-in-law. Because it's a really big problem, because both of our families are having like very tiny windows. I mean, tiny, not the plastic ones, but the wooden ones, and those glass can be broken pretty easily. So basically, if the explosion will happen and they will survive through it, they will not be able to live in those apartments because it will be contaminated with the nuclear elements. So this is basically main concerns of mine right now. But yesterday our intelligence he told us that probably we have still some time to prepare.
Mm-hmm. And do you see it as something positive, that maybe the Russian army will have less soldiers because a lot of men want to leave the country and maybe are like showing that they are against the wish of attacking Ukraine?
The main thing is that there are those kilometer lines, like 20-kilometer lines in Georgia, that and to Finland and to Kazakhstan. They don't even take away the Z letter from their cars. So there were supporters inside of the country, and they are still supporters. They are still, even if they're not supporters, they basically, how many of really protests of those, because there was a wave of migration of Russians right after the whole thing started. How many anti-war protests done by Russians have you noticed going on in Europe? There was anti-Ukrainian one. There was like, please support Russians as well. But how many anti-war campaign, anti-war protests done by Russians have you seen? This is a good question to think about. When you think of them as a refugees, and also those people, they were living inside Russia these 7 months. They know that the war happens. They know that, even if I have friends who live in Moscow and their parents were living without any lights, any water supply for months in the basement in the Kyiv suburb. And she was still like very positive. Okay, it will somehow, it will go away. So this was her mood. She didn't do any single thing to help her parents, anything, except she was calling me and when she was not able to connect to them. And she was like, Marianna, do you know anything? What is in this area? Because I cannot really, I didn't have a call with them for several days. So she was stay in Moscow after the Kyiv region was liberated, and her parents went back to relatively normal life. And she was still there. Now I contacted her, and like my friends contacted her. I didn't, because for me it's complicated. Like morally, I can't stand the person who just sits and does nothing. So, but my close friends we contacted her and like asked Marina, you like, how do you feel about this whole mobilization thing? And she was like, you know, I believe that good people in Russia, there are more of those good people in Russia than the bad one. But my husband is basically the first one to be called because he has the military, he's in reserve. So basically he's the first one to be called. And she still don't want to do anything about it. And they believe that it will be sorted out by itself. So they don't want to do anything because basically, but they accept, at least they accept that Russia invaded Ukraine for the second time and everything. She looks like she is adequate in accepting the reality, but still inside Russia, I think she doesn't understand in which country she lives. Because yeah.
I have heard some of these testimonies as you just shared that actually, and it's quite logical, every Ukrainian person almost has been or knows people who are in Russia, and the other way around as well. So many Russians, especially the big cities, know people from Ukraine or who are in Ukraine. And also part of these people are part of the same family. When I was in Kyiv this summer, I spoke a lot with some people who told me that they have their parents or one of their siblings that is in Moscow or in some other place in Russia. And somehow everyone testified or testimonied that they never received any catch-up call, any message asking how the situation is, how they are, what's the truth in the country, in Ukraine. Yet the communication is not cut, like Russia has not forbidden Russians to be in touch with their Ukrainian friends and siblings, right? Or are they
Yes,
controlled?
totally right. The thing is that we have my husband's relatives are in Kaliningrad, which is Königsberg, so they're like the western part of Russia, and they still were like, they are afraid. Of course, they are afraid to like if they have, you know, like the messaging in their phones and they're being checked by the police for any reason. Of course, you should be very careful, of course. But I know many people who were telling the truth to their, like, we told the truth to my husband's relatives, and they decided to reply a very generically, like, just wait, everything will be fine. You will be liberated from Nazis, and everything will be fine. That's what we received, like sitting in the bomb shelter, like telling all the truth that happens. They just don't want to know, because the truth is very, very scary, that your country is the biggest evil in the world right now, and it's very, very hard to accept that. So they prefer not to believe in this, not to know. It's easier than to understand the reality that basically your country sends somebody for what, sends like probably your neighbor or somebody else who you know to the war, and for what reason, and they really kill the civilians, and they bomb the shopping malls. They don't want to believe in this. It is very hard truth for them, because they are taught, they don't teach the history. They have been like the Soviet Union joined the Nazi Germany in Poland. They don't learn this part of history. So they perceive Nazis as 100% bad and the Soviet Red Army is 100% good. And they don't know about how many rapes were happening in Eastern Germany after the Nazis capitulated, and they didn't know. So for them, they are great, they're good, 100%. They can't accept that their army did such atrocities as in Bucha or in Izum. So and those people are coming. Those people are coming now from the country just not to be sent to war, just because war because they were used to call this is a special military operation. It sounds similar. It sounds simpler. It sounds less dangerous. It sounds less disturbing. But when you receive so many these notes to be drafted to army, so you have to come to the the place for mobilization, it sounds kind of disturbing, because the war, probably it is the war, and that's why they run away. That's why, because this is related already to them. When it was on the TV, it was fine to them. They even on the protest, on this anti-mobilization protest in many cities, they would, okay, go to the war. You Putin, go to that foxhole, I think it's called, when the military dig the holes underground from like to protect yourself from artillery. I think it was foxholes. This is how it's called. Trenches. So basically, Putin go to trenches. So they are fine with trenches, overall. They don't want to go themselves there. So you go, but not me. No, thank you. So this is the mood there. They're just running from not being responsible, not taking part of it, because they don't feel responsibility for their country. It's Putin's job. Somebody else is guilty for that. And also many people there believe that this is a common West fighting with the oligarchs. So it's not their war. It's not their really responsibility, because we kind of okay to be just great, and something is happening. We see on the TV that we are strong and great, but we don't feel the responsibility for it. We why would we feel? Because somebody else is fighting there with Ukrainians, with Nazi Ukrainians. Somebody else killing them. So we feel like strong nation. We feel kind of great about it. I don't know. I can continue about it forever, but please direct me somewhere.
Yeah, we'll have a little breath all together. We also need to digest the information you're giving to us. I was I wanted to come back to two things you said, but I also would like to ask Thomas, Carol, Ruth, if you do have any questions to Marianna.
It's just probably too overwhelming.
It's not really a question, but maybe yes, still. So you think it's either the fear of the government of Putin, or the propaganda? Both axes are working on the Russian people.
So the thing is that Putin is always good. Those who are this no. The thing is that those problems with, because Putin said that only reserve will be called. Now everybody see that everybody, even with children, even without the special training that they undergo, if you are become 18, you have to be drafted to army for training, and then you're released. So even those without, because there is an option that you can, if you're studying and if you're doing PhD, you can be drafted for that training to army. So even those people are called. So basically it's a random call, and they feel already this. So, but Putin is said that it's only partial mobilization. So those generals, those, like headquarters on the places in the cities, they're guilty. They're doing it wrong. So we would better run away now, and they will sort it out without me, because they understand until they got to the drafting mobilization place, they will never have way back. They know that, because people who are protesters and people who question the politics in Russia, they appear to the police and they never come back, or they come back very, hurt. And so this is what they're afraid of. They, like, Putin is always good. The Tsar, the emperor, is always good in Russia, and the people are good. Only this, like, middle part, only those, they used to call them bayare, which is like, Alex, how to translate bayare into English? Noblemen. Only noblemen are guilty for all the troubles that happens with the Russian people. So they are afraid of those people, not Putin.
Okay.
Putin is the king. Putin is always
Putin,
the king.
Yeah, and he's always good. And this is like that has been all the time in Russia. Only if you would read there is a very great book about the last emperor of Russia, Nicholas II, and his memoirs. Basically, he was having a diaries and writing, and the one Russian writer took those diaries and created a good book from it. It was always like that. Two revolutions that happened in Russia at the beginning of 20th century was because of these noblemen, because of the police, because of every security service. Everybody, they're guilty. The Tsar is kind of, why? I love my people. How can why it's so bad? Why people are treated so badly? Because I love them. They're my people, and the people are also perceiving the Tsar like, okay, guy, like you are. They used to call the Tsars to be blessed by God, and he's blessed by God. He can't do bad things. So only this nobleman's police and security service are guilty for all the bad treatment in Russia. This is the vision they have still.
Okay.
It's crazy. It's the education. This is the education from the little boy to the big man.
This is also not. It's a cultural environment they live in. All the cultural, all like Tolstoy used to create in this paradigm. Dostoevsky, Turgenev as well, because in Turgenev, the big farm guy muted, his noble man told him, you should draw on this dog, on the only friend you have, and he did that. So that is not like the whole education, not the Tsar is bad, but the nobleman is bad. And this is like most of the cultural products that was produced in the imperial Russia was in that supporting that paradigm, that the nobleman, the rich man, the Jews, most of the time, the police one is bad, but the Tsar is good and the people are good.
God, yeah. No, it's difficult. I cannot understand.
Probably I will do a lecture on one of the, probably, or Dostoevsky or Tolstoy, whatever you can choose, and we can we can dig into the narratives they portraying, so that will be more clear to you. But this is not what they, of course they taught propaganda in school, of course, but propaganda should lay on the prepared ground. Only in this case propaganda works. So this the whole cultural narratives that they live in. And like they are saying that we have a great examples of great culture. So how come learning the Tolstoy, Lermontov, and Dostoevsky, and Pushkin, and everybody can beget a rapist in Bucha? How come? How come this? And then you can find a very nasty poetry of Lermontov, of the like just beginning when he was drafted into the army, about rapes happening in the Imperial Russian army, and it was precisely described in the poetry, how bad and how mistreated they local girls on those occupied territories that they were based on. And for me, it was a discovery because I didn't know about that poem, Ulansha, that happens. And yeah, this is another topic of a discussion.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And I was wondering if you think that like the communities of Russia that are being sent to war right now, like Buryats and these folks, do they have access to that culture? Do you think that this culture is part of their education, or that they...
Like, you can't study something different in Russia. You will be imprisoned. You have a program. You have a strict program. They everywhere. They implemented that program even on the occupied territories because the school year just started. They brought a lot of teachers from Russia. Those teachers encountered with the problem that Ukrainian kids doesn't know Russian because they know Ukrainian. So those teachers brought from Russia can't really communicate and understand the kids, and the kids can understand the teacher because the kids don't know Russian. But they burned the books in the libraries, the Ukrainian one. They brought their books with them to study kids on the occupied territories. You have access it even here during the war. It's ubiquitous.
Just a little question about this language thing, because as we know, in the eastern part of Ukraine, there is also, and mainly in some regions, the Russian-speaking language. So when you say that the Russian teachers come and they have a problem because the kids don't speak Russian, which regions are you talking about?
About the same regions, because the school teaching in Ukraine is mandatory to be in Ukrainian. And that was a big problem with Russia in 2014, when we said, okay, you can have a voluntary, like you can have English, you can have German, French, Spanish, or Russian, if like as a second foreign language. But the schools in Ukraine should be Ukrainian. You should be taught in Ukrainian. That was a big problem for them. They were like defending the Russian-speaking population here in 2014 when they first invade Ukraine. There was to preserve the Russian schools, and they like for a while controlled Yanukovych. They controlled by Russia, like our president. He was, and his party was about like several times they tried to make this Russian as being a second language at schools. But kids in Ukraine, there's a very common situation when the parents, oi, is it okay? Okay. So basically there is a common situation when parents are speaking Russian and Ukrainian to their kids, because their kids coming from school speaking Ukrainian. And this is common for all regions now. If it replies to your question.
Thank you. Yeah, somehow, yeah, and it's very interesting information that we don't specially get here.
Because sorry, I will add on that. So basically, the population, the grown-up population in those regions, definitely more Russian-speaking, way more Russian-speaking than the Ukrainian one. But the kids learn Ukrainian, so that's already a shift that's made by Ukraine to preserve our national identity. So this is the period.
And this doesn't make Ukraine a Nazi nation, right?
Not at all, because those who are Nazis are Russians. One. Basically, we have a specific term for them. and it was used by Timothy Snyder, American American historian, popular one. He derived a specific term, Russianism. So basically, when the Russians are greater than all the nations they have in Russia, which is very true. It's very true. I had a Chechen-born classmate in Ukraine, and she told me lots of stories about chauvinism in Russia. Basically, if you're white, you're good, but if you're like Chechen and they're kind of and they look different, it's okay. The Russian territory is like very waste, and the Buryats, they look like Asians, and Kafkas nations, they look Kafkas. It's okay, and there are a lot of Udmurts and many nations. And if you look different, if you have the surname that directs you to those origins, not the white Russian, you have problems with police. You have problems with renting an apartment. You have a problem with if a police will be looking for bad guys, they will be it's like a police brutality in the US when they attack black ones more than the white ones. So the same level of chauvinism in Russia brings us to a real Nazi in this situation. And the Ukrainians, they're always somehow inferior in comparison to Russians. They have less culture. They have less, like the Ukrainian language is less language, a lot of theories, a lot of different, and how they portray Ukrainians in the movie. It's always all the one who creates troubles in the movie, it's Ukrainian, and the Russian will sort it out. Or then like the crazy radical will be Ukrainian. So they were preparing their population for a while.
Yeah,
I do have a little. Describe.
Madeleine, we didn't hear you.
Can you say that again?
Did you hear me?
Yeah.
Now, yes.
Yeah, okay. I was saying I have a little provocative question for you. No, it's just that when you describe these habits of Russian movies with the nice Russian and the bad Ukrainian, of course, in our Occidental thoughts, we think of American movies, and the American white guy is like the perfect guy, and all the other nationalities, and especially the black folks, have to be like the bad guys. And also the Russians are usually the bad guys in the American movies, right? So here in Europe, we do have, of course, this vision that everything that is happening right now in Ukraine might be mainly because of this fight between these two imperialistic states, United States,
US,
Russia. And somehow the state of Ukraine and the support to Ukraine is a bit drowned into that. And I would like to have your opinion on that, or your vision of what you need from Europe right now, because we cannot take this out, that there are these two imperialistic states on both sides. But how can we readjust the topics? Because is the war in Ukraine really a war between Russia and the United States? Or is the war in Ukraine an attack of Russia on democratic values represented by Ukraine? What is it? And it can be several things.
So the thing is that you should remember about Americans, that who are really dying now in Ukraine? Ukrainians and Russians. Russian soldiers, Ukrainian soldiers, and civilians. This is the main thing. When, like, with the imperialistic Russian narrative of we are protecting our land from the Western Commonwealth and blah blah blah, all that goes on Ukrainian territory. We never had US contingent, you know, we never have had American base here. It's just not true. And for very first month, the Americans were kind of waited until we finally fall, and we will, you know, like be kind of submissive to Russia. They will, like, because they were like had that bad situation with Afghanistan when they like flooded them with guns and weapons to protect the democratic values, and then they realized that the local Afghanistan population doesn't really want those values, and it's basically were for the US a big trouble. So they didn't want to support Ukraine with a weapon for for a month. We were begging for that. The second thing, the democratic values. Even comparing the US and Russia, they have similar approaches and of doing international geopolitics and international their, you know, influence. The thing is that the US, if the US had lost 50,000 people, their government will be already thrown away several times. Russia doesn't care about anybody. It's already almost 60,000 soldiers killed in Ukraine, and they don't care. Nobody, like the government, their family, no, the families probably care, but some of them are buying new cars for those money received for the dead soldiers, member of their family, and they're happy about their cars, and they're being shot in the propagandistic videos. So talking about again, I don't see the point. How can you compare like US fighting with Russia in Ukraine? Because there are some volunteers who came and they're drafted to Ukrainian army, American born and British born and Morocco born, but you cannot claim that the US are fighting in Ukraine because we will pay for that weapon they provide us. You know, like you can't just, we don't have as much factories for producing weapons, and most of them have been bombed and destroyed already by Russia. And we need to have weapon, so we are asking the country who has weapon to provide us, then all the next generation will be paying for that. So we don't perceive that as, you know, like giving up from the US. We understand that we will give those money back, but then the democratic values, again, the value of life is I think in the core of democratic world. And we are caring about, we in Ukraine care about every single soldier that still is in captivity in Russia. We had a very bright, amazing news about releasing of Mariupol defenders. We were crying like the whole country were crying from happiness that at least some of them have been released, but we know that many of them are still there. And we care about every single person there. We care about every single person killed yesterday in Zaporizhia. It's a big pain for every of us. We really share those values of life. And we share the values of elections. We still have fights inside the country, even during the war. We have we perceive it as a national heritage to always fight about everything. We don't agree. And here, and we like now the institution I'm working at, we have the fight for our institution because in the government they don't understand the value of our institution. We fight for that. This is a very democratic values to fight for what you believe. And Russians, basically their theaters turned into mobilized places for mobilization. They don't care. They don't fight for them. Like the thing is that they see that the police is taking the person next to you, your fellow citizen who don't agree with mobilization, and you don't do nothing because there is a one policeman and one protester, and that policeman takes this protester next to you, and you do nothing. You just they just turn on the camera. They don't even try to fight with the policeman to bring the guy back. No, this is the why Maidan happened, because the people who didn't know anybody like next to you were really caring about each of people of person who was in Maidan. We really cared about every single person. We're bringing everybody, we're bringing something to help somebody you don't even know, but you know that it's a drop in the ocean. You help, and this help will find the person in need. They don't have those. They don't.
Thank you. You just were a few weeks. For me, it was going to be the last question. Maybe then also Carol has some. You just were a few weeks in Europe for a job in Vienna. How do you feel the coming back to your home place, which is on war?
It is very hard. I didn't know that it would be so hard because here you spend a lot of your emotional resource on being all the time alert, all the time hearing the sirens, those loud sounds. In Europe, I knew that I'm safe, so I had like the sound of helicopters disturbed me for a little while, but I got used to it because I knew that I'm safe. But coming back, I really all the time feel very, very sleepy and very always tired, because I start spending a lot of resource on being alert, and this always the guilty feeling that somebody is dying there for you, somebody is defending you and your peaceful life here in Kyiv, and you always do not enough. You always do not, like, because for like I don't have a salary because I took the vacation, unpaid vacation, so I have to wait for that salary. I can't donate. I can't, and this is a very disturbing feeling that I can't donate, and I can't I have to come back to work and help the Dovzhenka Center and do the job, but I'm not helping them. And this is taking a lot of resource from me, really a lot of resource, because I always have this feeling of, because I see how many people are dying, and I know that counteroffensive that our army is doing now is always a lot of soldiers, more soldiers are dying because when you defend, it's just easier on them. So knowing that feeling and living in that all the time really takes a lot of resources. And I didn't know that it would be so hard for me. But we adapt. We're human. We adapt, and I got used to it for these 2 weeks that I'm here, and it's now it perceives like normal feeling of being guilty. Normal feeling of being guilty and grateful. This is grateful feeling when I see the soldiers on the streets, especially the tired ones, especially around the train station. Probably they came from somewhere. I have this feeling of crying, but I can't cry, and I can't say anything. I want to say thank you, but this is just such an overwhelming feeling. I can't say anything, so I'm just crying and watching them. We even created this sign of how to say thank you when you don't feel comfortable to say something. We just do this and looking at the soldier, and this is kind of something. How can you transmit that feeling of overwhelming gratefulness that you have to that person?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm. I think I have gone through all my questions, and maybe Thomas or Carol has some more.
I don't think I have many other questions either. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marianna.
Yeah.
You're well welcome. Thank you for listening to me and giving me that opportunity to share the feelings, because really sometimes we're here in Ukraine, we're like, we all sharing those feelings, and we don't always talk about those feelings because it's all understand, like yes, I know, yes, I, and this is no. So, and when you all are like that and you are all alert, you don't always talk about this, but it is very important to talk about this, and it brings a relief. So thank you very much for being a very good listeners and very active listeners, and empathetic listeners. Thank you very much.
Thank you again.
And we continue releasing every day the overloaded emotion with some rest, movement, some drawing. We strongly believe, we know, and each one of us knows, you as well, Marianna, how much doing this is like a healthy way of being able to hold it through the distance. So that's why we join. We join to show our solidarity, and we join to remain also on track. So we'll continue to be here with open doors to listen and to share and to dance. So till then,
have a safe trip.
Yeah.
Have a safe trip. Yeah.
And thank you very much.
And
Thank
see you
you.
soon.
See you.
See you soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye.
Sending you warmth from Ukraine, because today we have 18 degrees and it's very warm. You see, I'm in a t-shirt. Sending that
Thank
to
you.
The rain that is here over me is taking it in. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Be safe. Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.